Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I want to talk to you about a couple of things in this video, the latest updates from Gaza, from Lebanon, and I also wanted to talk to you about a couple of articles that were published in Israeli newspapers and more criticism coming from parents of IDF troops and them complaining that Israel is sacrificing them for a pointless war where they're not achieving anything. In Gaza and Lebanon, we still had continuous attacks from the resistance against Israel. Al-Qassam brigades and other resistance movements, they targeted Israeli tanks, they targeted Israeli troops, and they targeted bulldozers continuously today, and it's a repetition from the previous days and a continuation at the same level, and Hezbollah is doing the same thing. For the past 2 weeks up north, Hezbollah has been conducting from 100 to 200 attacks a day, sometimes reaching 160 missiles and even more a day, UAVs, drones, attacks on Israeli bases, and Israel does not have an answer to it. And I'm going to start off with the article published in the Israeli newspaper Ma'arif from a man called Avi Ashkenazi, who criticized Israel's actions in Lebanon and said for the first time in history and against the security doctrine of Israel, the war is being waged inside of Israeli territories. Shouldn't be us having the war in our territories, in our own backyard. It should always be in the enemy territories, and this is setting a new bar, a new precedent for the future, and we wouldn't be able to handle it if this continues. He also criticized the way that Israel is not able to give an answer to what Hezbollah is conducting, and he highlighted several reasons as to Hezbollah's increased attacks and why they are attacking more recently. According to him, it's the season of the year and the weather, and Hezbollah is saying that Israel's focused more on Gaza, the international pressure and isolation, and the support that they're getting from Iran. One thing he hasn't mentioned yet, though, is the inability of Israel to provide an answer for Hezbollah. Israel attempted to provide an answer, and they tried to invade Lebanon with special units, forces from the Golani Brigade particularly, and they couldn't get in. They were all back as casualties from Lebanon with a very limited invasion in Lebanon. The second article that I want to talk to you about is from a guy called Yoni Hileli. He actually had a radio show, and then it was reported on an Israeli newspaper called Ma'arif. It was on 104.5 FM in Israel. He spoke with a major general who's retired. His name is Guy Tzur. Guy Tzur led the land army at one point previously, and again he is criticizing the Gaza front very heavily. He said our whole conduct is degrading us to very bad places. After all, we should have done the operation in Rafah in advance. At the same time that we are talking with the coalition about the day after and who will replace the government in Gaza, it is not possible now to bring someone and put him in place of Hamas, and the Gaza Strip has been run by Hamas, and Hamas is still kicking and alive today. Again, a very frank and straightforward admission from a general in the Israeli army that Hamas is still powerful, still alive, and still kicking. What he's not saying, though, is that Hamas is getting stronger. Their attacks in the past 10 days after Israel's re-invasion of certain parts in central and north Gaza was way more intense than before. The Palestinian resistance targeted 100 Israeli vehicles in just under 10 days. Now, previously, throughout all of this genocide and all of the military campaign up until last month, you spoke about approximately 1,200 Israeli military vehicles, 1,000 of which Merkavas. Now, if you're talking about 100, now that's much more intense when it comes to the daily attacks in Gaza. And the final thing that I want to talk to you about is more complaints from Israeli parents about the government and them sending their troops to go and die in this pointless war. We previously had instances, obviously, of Israeli troops running away from the war. Back from October, we had a case of 2,000 Israeli soldiers running away with 2 commanders. We also had other incidents where troops fled from other parts of Gaza. Most recently, over 30, at least to what Israel declared, refused to serve in Rafah. More people are refusing to serve altogether. Obviously, many people fled Israel. And you have a division that's all the way up north that's not willing to fight for Benjamin Netanyahu altogether. As a matter of fact, it started from the beginning and even before Israel invaded Gaza. If you recall, when the Israeli forces and the reservists were outside of Gaza and they haven't entered yet, Benjamin Netanyahu couldn't even face these people. They were shouting at him, screaming at him, criticizing him, saying that he's not prioritizing the people who were kidnapped in Gaza, and going on invasion will risk the lives of these people. And this is evident because over 80 were killed by Israel so far after the genocide started, apart from those who Israel massacred on the 7th of October in the Nova Festival, Ra'im, Nir Oz, Kibbutz Be'eri, and the other kibbutzes as shown and as I spoke about previously from multiple statements from Israeli witnesses and from pilots in the Israeli army who were ordered to shoot at everyone going back to Gaza. Very recently, you had a few hundred, several hundred parents of Israeli troops sending a letter to the government saying that we refuse to allow our children to be re-enlisted and sent back to Rafah. Now, the Israeli Broadcasting Authority, they had a conversation with one of the parents of an Israeli soldier. In that interview that she had with the Israeli Broadcasting Authority, she said that more than 1,000 from the families of the soldiers in Gaza realized that their sons are being sacrificed without any exit. She also stated that we realize that there is no strategy and that the troops in the Israeli army are losing faith and are not trusting their leadership altogether during the war in Gaza.